Hey everyone, this is the Spoon Dude back with another video, finally. Sorry it took me so long for me to put another one out, but that's life. I posted a short video showing off my custom Marvel Legends style Batman figure, though unlike most of my videos, that one didn't have my lovely voice. I posted that video so y'all could see my newest custom, even if I wasn't, talking about it. But since you guys asked for it, I'm doing this other video so I could tell you how I actually made the figure. So I'll start by answering the question, why did I make this custom? Though you wouldn't be able to tell from my videos, I'm actually a big Batman fan and I own a decent number of Batman figures. But what actually inspired me to make this figure wasn't Batman, but Superman. I had first decided to make a Superman custom figure using the Marvel Legends Punisher body, and after ordering that Punisher figure, I decided that I should make a Batman to go along with the Superman I was gonna make. So I went out to my local GameStop and bought one of the many Marvel Legends Guardian figures that were there, so I could begin work on the Batman. Weirdly enough, I had decided to make Superman first, but I ended up making the Batman before the Superman. That's just how it worked out. Anyways, I chose the Marvel Legends Guardian figure because his head sculpt was very Batman-like. Pretty much when that figure was announced, I thought it would make for a great Batman. I mean, it's basically a bald Batman head. He just needs the ears. So getting the figure, I immediately began work. Firstly using nail polish remover, aka acetone, to take off all the paint on the body. I then used some boiling hot water to take the figure apart, going farther than I usually go and even taking apart the knee and elbow joints. Once the figure was all separated, I used some sandpaper to sand down the surface of the joints especially, and all this prep work was so that I could eliminate paint rub. Speaking of paint rub though, I tried something new with this Batman figure that I haven't really done on my other customs. For his elbow and knee joints and even his ankle joints and his wrist joints, I used sandpaper and my X-Acto blade to trim the joint pieces down, and hopefully you can see in the picture how the original joint is a lot rounder and even, and I basically just chipped at it so that it would be flatter. And the purpose of this was to trim the joint down so that when it's all put together, it doesn't bump into the other pieces of plastic as much. So I'm basically eliminating the rub altogether. The only downside to this was that now there's a bit of a gap where the joints are. As you can see when I move it, it has a little bit of depth to it compared to like a regular knee joint that's all flush. So aesthetically, they're not as nice, but I can live with it because it makes the figure a little bit more playable, and I don't have to worry about paint rub as much. So it's kind of like an extreme solution, but it does actually help prevent paint rub. Finally, in terms of tedious prep work, I cleared out some space in the knee joints so that I could get a better bend. If you have the Guardian figure or any Marvel Legends figure with this kind of body mold, the knee joints are kind of limited, so I cleared out some space for that. In making this Batman, I was loosely inspired by the artwork of Alex Ross. His Batman has longer bat ears, a classic bat logo, a pouch belt, etc., all of which I put into my figure. Like I said, the Guardian head is pretty much a Batman head. He was just bald and needed bat ears. To do this, I used flossers, or floss, I guess, as you can see, which I cut and sanded to be the right length for my Batman. I shaved the sides of Guardian's head so I could fit the flossers, and they would be even with the head and wouldn't stick out on the sides. From there, I used my Milliput epoxy clay to smooth it out and make the ears look like they're just part of his mask and head. I sculpted the neck part of Batman's cowl, again loosely following Alex Ross's style of Batman. By sculpting the cowl, I basically set where I was going to put his cape. I sculpted the classic Batman logo nice and big on the chest so that, it stands out. Finally, I did the edge of his big Batman briefs and the seams of his boots and gloves. For the glove spikes, I used some rubbery plastic from some fodder capes I had lying around. And for the last bit of sculpting, I needed him to have a utility belt. By this time, the Punisher figure that I was going to use for my Superman had finally shipped out to me. So I took that Punisher belt, cut that sticky outy bit off of it, and I used my Milliput clay to smooth out the square buckle so it looked, like Batman's belt. And pretty much aside from that, I just cut a little bit off the back of the belt, and when I had the figure all put together, I just glued the belt on, and it works pretty well for Batman's belt. Now I had to paint the Batman figure. I wanted to try something new with this guy, which I haven't really done before, which was using a primer. I spray painted over most of the figure while I was still taking apart. Once all the pieces were primed and already dried, I waited for like a day. I put them all back together, and then once I put the figure together, I started the rest of the painting, which is pretty simple. I just used a gloss black for all the, his mask, his underwear, his boots and gloves, and of course his bat logo. And then I dry brushed a lighter gray on top of his bodysuit, and his belt is just a mustardy kind of yellow with a lighter yellow dry brushed on top, and a gold for the belt buckle. For his cape, it's just some cheap t-shirt cloth that I got from a cheap t-shirt that I of course cut to the right shape, and I glued it to the top of his shoulders, trying to make it so that I could have the cape kind of cover his shoulders but still be moved out of the way depending on the poses. I hemmed both the sides and the bottom of the cape to prevent it from fraying. Finally, I gave this figure the gripping hands from the Punisher figure, as I wanted to use Guardian's white fists for my Superman. These gripping hands are pretty helpful for Batman and let him hold all kinds of things like a batarang, a grapnel gun. He can hold a batarang and a grapnel gun. He can hold a batarang and a regular gun. He can hold a batarang and another batarang. And of course he can hold hands. And for when he needs to use the hammers of justice, aka his fists, I was able to have him borrow the fisted hands from the Marvel Legends Netflix Daredevil, so I didn't really modify them or anything, and they match him quite well. But of course, fists aren't always enough, so his gripping hands could let him hold other weapons to help him out in his war against crime. Finally, as much as I like the long ears look for Batman, sometimes I do prefer a shorter eared Batman, so I decided to hollow out my DC Collectibles Capullo Batman head so that it could fit on this custom for when I want that kind of shorter eared look for Batman. Now, the lengthy prep work that I did for this figure means that out of all of my customs, he has some of the least paint rub. Something I'm pretty proud of. Sure, there's some bits of paint that flake off here and there, but it's not nearly as much of a problem as it has been on some of my other figures. So yeah, that's how I made my custom Batman figure. I always wanted to have a Marvel Legends style Batman figure, and I'm happy I finally got around to doing it. I spoke a bit of my custom Superman figure, so hopefully I can get a video made of that soon enough. But yeah. What do you guys think of my Batman figure? Leave your thoughts, good or bad, in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope to see you in my next video. Thanks.